Hello, my name is Emma. Oh, how interesting the cycles of fandoms are. Something that was once seen as stupid and childish can later be seen as a time of wonder and innovation years later. Fandoms come back after being dead for a long time with a new spin, and MLP creepypastas get an uncanny valley facelift. But how did we get here? How did more than a decade-old fandom trope get rebirthed as an idea that is seen as new and exciting again? Well, for that we have to start from the beginning. For this video, we will be going over a brief history of bronies, MLP creepypastas and games, as well as a new wave of pony quote-unquote fan fiction. I will also be creating my very own infection AU in this video speedpaint, so if you want to know all the detail and all the little lore, stay till the end. Alright, I think that's enough introduction. Let's jump into the video. My Little Pony was a toy line created in the 1980s filled with colorful plastic ponies with brushable hair for little girls. The series would often get rebooted about every decade or so since its first creation, just to keep it fresh and to keep the brand alive. So when a new reboot was announced for 2010, it wasn't out of the ordinary. The show was created by Lauren Faust, who sought to bring a new life for the franchise. Though My Little Pony Friendship is Magic was created to sell toys just as all other MLP shows and movies were before it, Faust wanted to bring in the personality she gave her toy ponies as a child, giving each main character a distinct personality type with very dynamic designs. The show had heavy world building and very thought out adventures for the ponies to go on. This was a breath of fresh air since many other toy focused cartoons were very soulless and you could tell the only purpose they were made for. Enter, of all things, 4chan. Lauren Faust was already a very prominent figure in the animation world, with having done work for the Powerpuff Girls, the Iron Giant, and many others. So when people heard she was going to be the mind behind this product placement cartoon, they had to see it for themselves. Many people, majority 4chan users, had low expectations going in and were surprised to see that it wasn't that bad and that they actually liked parts of it, which was strange to them since majority were adult men. This sparked a ironic but becoming sincere fandom known as bronies. I can't believe I'm talking about this right now. If you want to know all the ins and outs regarding the fandom, I recommend this video by Jenny Nicholson, by the way. Mwah. It's so good. Now, what goes along with fandoms? Well, a lot of things, but most prominent in most cases is fanfiction. The creator Sergeant Sparkles was one of the very first My Little Pony fanfiction writers on 4chan and later Equestria Daily. This author is credited with the ooky spooky story known as Cupcakes, created sometime in January 2011. In the fanfiction, Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash decide to meet up at Sugar Cube Corner to make cupcakes. Upon arriving, Rainbow Dash is drugged and wakes up in Pinkie Pie's basement strapped to a table. The room is filled with corpses and remnants of other killed ponies. Pinkie appears wearing a dress of sewn cutie marks, a necklace of unicorn horns, and a string of Pegasus wings strapped to her back. Pinkie Pie dismembers Rainbow Dash very violently, all while making jokes like this is a regular day for her. It's a short fanfiction. At the time, fans of My Little Pony saw this as something very extreme and crossing a line. For today's standards of internet horror, it's not the best, but 2011, the thought of ponies doing something this horrific was very scary. Pinkie Pie being the main aggressor in My Little Pony creepypastas was very common. I think it was because she was seen as the quote-unquote insane one. She saw the most mileage in this context. There was also a memorable YouTube animation titled Cupcakes, obviously, that showed some of the things that happened in the fan fiction. It was set to music and at first seems harmless until it takes a turn. Why did they always start out harmless and then go to like hardcore gore? I was very scarred as a child. But how did we get here? How did murderous My Little Ponies come to be? Was it random? Quite the opposite. In order to find out why this was made and was so popular, you have to look at the context of this time period. There was another very popular fandom that was heading to its peak around the same time: creepypastas. Creepypasta's origins began as a creepy internet chainmail back in the 90s. You know, you get the stories like, "Hi, my name is Carmen Winston." It's the repost this if you don't want to be cursed, that kind of vibe. The term creepypastas was later used as a blanket statement for all internet horror. You had Slender Man, Jeff the Killer, Ben Drown, all these iconic figures on the internet with their own creepy story to go along. Good or bad, they're all pretty infamous. Now, the term creepypasta isn't usually used nowadays, but at the time on the internet, it was a very popular wave of horror. With these two fandoms coexisting, there was bound to be overlap. I mean, the Brony fandom is very well known to make fan crossover creations and pony versions of popular media. It was bound to happen. Cupcakes was not the last MLP creepypasta. I'm not even going to scrape the surface in this video. There's a lot. But the next one that comes to mind is Rainbow Factory. Rainbow Factory was actually a fan fiction based on a song made by the Wooden Toaster and Brony Dance Party, two horse famous bronies in the fandom. Horse famous was a term used by bronies to signify popular fan creators or showrunners for MLP, by the way. The song was created for a contest within the Brony fandom to write a song about how rainbows are created. And then came this banger. I'm not gonna lie, this song, it's good. It's good. I love that the models for this animation came from Pony Creator too. The amount of time I spent on that freaking game, oh my god. The fanfiction, which was originally created by Aurora Dawn, follows Scootaloo along with some inserted OCs by the creator. Oh my god, I'm realizing Aurora was supposed to be a self-insert right now. There's nothing wrong with that, but it makes a lot of sense now. Anyway, Scootaloo takes the Pegasus test and fails along with the other characters. She is taken to the Rainbow Factory, where they will be grounded up and turned into rainbows because apparently that's the only way to make them. I'll be honest though, I knew the Rainbow Dash Presents version of this fanfiction before reading the actual one, and yeah, things make a lot more sense in that episode now. Side note, I love Rainbow Dash Presents. It's such a good series, and this episode is so funny because Rainbow Dash is trying so hard to avoid murdering them at all costs. And she got like promoted to supervisor after like 3 days of working there.
There's punching cookies by the door. No rainbows. Pizza party. You been grinding up ponies, baby? You sure you don't mean grinding up on ponies? No, I haven't done any grinding. On the first day, I locked myself in the bathroom, and I was all like, no, the bathroom is occupied. You can't come in. I'm not going. You can't make me go out there. You didn't tell me that there's gonna be little children. They had to break down the door and drag me out of there. They sent me home after. On the second day, they had the key, so they didn't break anything down. And today's the third day, and we've earned a break, and we should have a pizza party.
That show has aged very well out of anything made in the fandom, comedic-wise. Anyways, not everyone in the main six had major creepypastas like Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie, but some of the others were Amnesia Shy, which was based off of the character in the horror game Amnesia. I remember PewDiePie playing this game, but I'm not sure if this was the first iteration of this character or if she came from somewhere else. Credible sources are hard to come by for stuff like this, I'll tell ya. This game was kind of trolly. It was more of a joke. I'm not sure, but I think this is what popularized this particular Fluttershy. There was another Fluttershy creepypasta though. It didn't really start out as one. It was from the satirical animated series called Pony Movie. It was another shock value piece like, whoa, look at those naughty things those ponies are saying. Wacky! They aren't my favorite, but it sparked a fandom in-joke with Fluttershy stating, stay out of my shed. Of course, the ponies go into her shed and find a gruesome scene of animal carcasses and blood. Rainbow Dash gets murdered by Fluttershy. Why is it always Rainbow Dash? And Fluttershy gets arrested. Kind of funny, I guess. Rarity had Little Miss Rarity, which is hard to pinpoint what's going on. I think her cat Opal scratches her face, which sends her spiraling to kill others. I know it gets really weird though, and I'm not going to go that deep into it. I think it was a Tumblr Ask blog, and I think that's why I have trouble pinpointing solid story, because I don't want to go through the whole thing. There was a lot of others, as I said, but none that I resonated with when I was younger. But as you can see, most of these ran the pattern of murder pony equals spooky. But there was a lot more subtle horror within the fandom that I really enjoy. Let's go on to that now. The Story of the Blanks was an early example of less is more when it comes to creepy stories with ponies. This Flash game was created in 2011 by Donut, so it's very early fandom stuff here. In the game, you play as Apple Bloom. Apple Bloom begs Twilight to let her go with her into the Everfree Forest to give books to Sakura. After a lot of begging, Twilight relents and they set off together. When heading back, Twilight finds fallen trees in their path and has to remove them. Apple Bloom sees a pony slip past and into the forest. She follows the pony without Twilight's knowledge and stumbles across a hidden community. The ponies don't have cutie marks like Apple Bloom, so she blends in. They are friendly, but a little off-putting. At the end of the small town, there's a dark house which only has a fireplace inside. Inside the fireplace lays the remains of a pony. Apple Bloom gets startled by this and runs back outside to find the town has changed to being abandoned and in ruins. The ponies are now zombies and reveal that they killed the pony in the fireplace after she got her cutie mark, believing her to be wicked. The ponies of the town are cursed but beg Apple Bloom to stay with them. Apple Bloom finds the pony she saw run into the forest earlier, and she reveals that she was the one that was killed. She helps her escape, and Apple Bloom goes back to Twilight, who was very worried but is relieved to see her. They go home and the game ends. It's a short game, but it has a great story and it's very unsettling, without it having to be gory or relying on jump scares. This game was actually on one of those girls' game sites. You know, the ones where they have a bunch of knockoff Disney games or Barbie games. When I looked up pony games when I was younger, this was amongst pony creators and dress-up games. I clicked on this game thinking it looked cool, but upon starting it up, I quickly stopped. I had trust issues in this fandom and I was scared very easily, so I did not trust this. It looked freaky. And it turns out I was very correct. Good job, Gut. Good job. Now let's get to the last older media I'll speak about in this video. The Trotting Dead. While not technically a creepypasta or greatly popular in the fandom by some standards, this one has always been one of my favorites. The plot basically follows that of the AMC show, The Walking Dead, and is a parody of sorts. Applejack gets a tree fallen on her after kicking it too much and falls into a coma. Upon waking, she finds the world has ended and zombie ponies have taken over. When she leaves the hospital, she finds Ponyville is destroyed. Applejack finds an injured pony who remarks that he thought she was dead. She then goes to Sweet Apple Acres to retrieve a med kit to help the pony. When she gets back, it's too late and the pony has turned into a zombie, to her horror. There was supposed to be multiple episodes of the series, but this was the only one that ever got made. It had decent writing and really good art. This format is similar to other media in the fandom at the time, such as Bride of Discord. God, I was obsessed with that back then. Oof. This Would Have Been series rings a lot of bells with what's happening in the fandom today, only this is a very 2010 version. The brony fandom started to decline after 2017. There has been some MLP media since Friendship is Magic ended in 2019, including another reboot which went over okay, but it did not spark another movement at all. These ponies for this movie rarely get talked about. I've never seen them brought up after the movie lost popularity, so even though the MLP fandom isn't what it once was, the fandom continues through everyone's shared nostalgia of the show. Only the torch has been passed to the children who grew up with the bronies now, the kids who were supposed to be the target audience at the time. The fandom has changed a lot, but I have noticed an uptick in artwork and fan creations of recent. As for creepypastas, they died out way before My Little Pony did. They still exist, it's just not a popular term to use anymore on the internet, and the creepypasta website I don't think is that active anymore. Internet horror didn't stop though. We still have new ARGs and spooky stories all the time, but the trends have changed. Enough with the cheap jump scares and overly excessive gore. This is what's scary now. Liminal horror sparked a whole new world of internet works and fandoms. These pictures are stuck in a time period. They ring in our minds to childhood, a safer, happier place, but they are empty, dark. They are familiar, but something's off. In my opinion, the thing that really started this was the backrooms. The fear in the endless unknown. It feels like a place we've been to before, but nobody really has. The backrooms are a whole nother tangent. I mean, they have a whole lore that people really don't like, but we won't go into it right now. But it paved the way for a lot of new cool stories in media. I think liminal horror really popularized analog horror and the uncanny valley. Series like FNAF VHS, The Walton Files, and the Mandela Catalog all come to mind as really successful and scary series of videos. The uncanny valley is a big buzzword right now. It can be described as an emotional response a human has to another being or entity that possesses human likenesses. So someone who looks really off, but you can't put your finger on it, that kind of thing. Now, this has been seen in other internet horror before, but nowadays there's a very clear picture of what this kind of thing looks like. Analog horror, a lot of the time, makes you feel like what you are consuming is real. It emulates news footage or emergency broadcasts, and is almost always portrayed as a VHS tape. Usually one you shouldn't be watching. This adds a level of immersion that's really interesting and pulls you right into the story. It doesn't rely on jump scares in the traditional sense. No, scares usually come from a paused, distorted face accompanied by silence or a distorted voice track. I'll be honest, this stuff, it gets to me. It gets to me. At first, I couldn't watch most analog horror with the sound on, but I've since desensitized myself, but I still get a terrible feeling in my stomach whenever one of these faces pops up. With this context, let's move to TikTok. There's a new trend going around in slideshows on TikTok where you take a popular media franchise and make a quote-unquote infection AU, which is basically an apocalypse alternate universe where you make character cards of whatever show or movie characters explaining what they're doing. Usually the slideshow will end in a distorted image of one of these characters caught in the infection or disease. This trend started pretty ironically. I saw some young Sheldon ones in the beginning. TikTok loves that show. I don't know. But once it reached the MLP fandom, it changed. People started to create these intricate worlds with original artwork and storylines. Some of the diseases they used for the infection were based off of canon diseases in the show, which they have a ton, by the way. I was very surprised. The stories usually revolve around the main six and the various ways they survive or don't survive. The slideshows show their state of mind and their stats, kind of like a video game or logbook. There's always at least one infected, usually at the end. Almost always it's Rainbow Dash or Pinkie Pie. That's just the ones I've noticed a lot. This format is repeated throughout everyone's story to some degree. I know TikTok is an echo chamber to your own niche, but whenever I start to see people posting content making jokes about the subject that is trending, I know it has to be more well known than usual. The person that really snowballed this My Little Pony infection AU, in my opinion, is a creator on TikTok going as Chloe. Her storyline is one of the most talked about, and it's the one I was most inspired for mine. I really recommend you go to her TikTok and check her stuff out, but one thing that really stuck out that was really heartbreaking was the story for Shining Armor and Cadence. Shining Armor was infected and tried to return home to the Crystal Empire, traveled all the way without detection until he got there. His mind is gone. He only knows that he has to get home to his daughter, but he's becoming the shell of what he once was. It's so heartbreaking. It is very good though. There are so many other very well done ones on TikTok, and if you like horror media, I highly suggest checking some of the stuff out. It's very cool. Wow. We have come full circle, huh? It's crazy how in my lifetime I've seen My Little Pony fan horror creations in not one but two flavors. I mean, what are the odds of that? It's so weird and niche. And it happened twice. Alright, now we'll talk about my infection AU, since I know you're just dying to hear about it. I know you just been like, when's she gonna talk about it? You did not care at all. Well, if you stayed this long, I love you. A lot of these AUs focus on the main six, which I think is great, but I wanted to capitalize on the large array of background ponies this show has. I chose Nurse Redheart, of course, since I think someone who is in the medical field is always interesting in concepts like this. And then I wanted an offset character to her that would contrast Redheart in a lot of ways, but still interesting, you know? I went with one of the Wonderbolts since there was a lot of them and I always liked them when I was a kid. Silver Zoom had a cool design, so I snatched him and here we are. The fun part about background ponies is that they have such loose personalities that you can basically make them your own, but you don't have to design a new character. Life hack! My story follows Redheart as she is summoned to the Crystal Empire to help find a cure for the outbreak. The Crystal Empire is under protection, so the infected are under control for testing. Redheart missed the last train from Ponyville to the Crystal Empire before the quarantine shut it down, but she is so determined to help ponies that she decided to travel on foot to fulfill her duties. She's days out from her destination, but sets out on a scary journey alone. About a day into her travel, she comes across an injured pony near Cloudsdale. She's wary of him, but he insists he is not infected. The infection isn't well documented or known at this time, so Redheart doesn't know if she can trust him or not. She overcomes her qualms when she remembers why she's on this trip, to help ponies in need. She bandages his broken wing and he introduces himself as Silver Zoom. Silver Zoom suggests that they travel together and that he follow along, and though she doesn't trust him yet, she realizes having another pony with her would be useful. In their traveling, Silver Zoom explains how the Wonderbolts were performing a goodbye show before quarantine, but it all went wrong once Soren started showing symptoms of the infection. Silver Zoom did escape without getting infected, but lost most of his colleagues in the chaos. He has no idea if any of them are still alive. My AU's infection is swamp fever. In the show, it comes from a poisonous swamp flower that makes you ill, eventually turning the pony into a tree. Only mine will have the ponies be much more violent, and the main way of getting infected would be through biting. The pony will forget who they are and will become a contorted tree only a week into infection. Their body will change and grow abnormally, preceding the final stage, but I haven't thought that deep into how it will affect the ponies. Redheart is confused on the trip why she hasn't seen any ponies. Where are the diseased? She doesn't know that she's walking right past them. When walking by the train tracks, Silver Zoom spots some pony who is sitting very still near them. The pony turns her head, almost smiling, her face contorted and elongated. It's like she was changing faster than her body could keep up with. Nurse Redheart knew that pony. It was Apple Bloom? Her stomach dropped. Redheart had heard the rumors, but she hadn't thought it was this bad. She was unrecognizable. On the last train to the Crystal Empire, Applejack traveled with Apple Bloom to get to Twilight, who was already there. AJ was in denial that her sister was unwell and tried to hide it best she could. One pony, though, pointed them out, and a panic spread throughout the train. The ponies urged to throw her off the moving train, but Applejack begged them to just stop it. Apple Bloom got off in the middle of nowhere. Applejack promised to come back for her as soon as she got to the Crystal Empire. Apple Bloom, never having lost faith in her dear sister, believed her. Applejack told her to stay put, don't move. So she listened. She didn't move. Her mind began to haze, but she won't move. They're coming for her. They'll be back. She won't move. She was so happy to see ponies. They came for her. They're here, but she's so weak, so tired. She just wanted to go home to be with her family again, but she never would. And that's all I got for now. Hee hee, ha ha ha. Do you like it? I'm not sure if I'll do another part ever, but this is a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know your trauma with MLP creepypastas, if it's in the past or in the present. I'm glad I got to do this video since things on TikTok really need to be documented more. I feel like in the future a lot of these things are going to be lost to time on that platform since everything moves so dang fast I cannot keep up. Again, thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And as always, peace.